All right, welcome back. Thanks so much for being here with us. I'm Nicole Holland, your host, and I'm super excited today to introduce you to my friend, Jason Hsiao. He's the co-founder and chief video officer of Animoto, an award-winning online video maker that makes it easy for anyone to create professional marketing videos. With the mission of empowering anyone to create powerful videos, Jason founded Animoto with his high school and Dartmouth college friends back in 2006. Animoto's certified partnerships with Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and the Small Business Administration give it unique insight into the changing social media and business landscape, which may be why more than 1 million businesses around the world are already using Animoto to create marketing videos. Prior to founding Animoto, Jason was a producer for MTV Networks and Comedy Central, and he's just an all-around amazing dude, and I'm so stoked to have him here on the show. Hey, Jason.
Hi, Nicole. Thanks so much for having me to your world. I'm super privileged and super excited about this.
Awesome. Cool. So let's go into your story a bit today, but before we do you just want to bring us up to speed on how you're really supporting folks on a day-to-day basis? Because I know inside of Animoto, there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of awesome people doing a lot of awesome things. But what are you doing specifically to help people create more quality videos and spreading the word?
Well, so really, like you said, our whole world is about empowering folks to kind of harness that power of video. And I think, what we are all seeing is that video is like literally everywhere now, right? And it's just changing everything. And things are changing at even a faster pace than, like with mobile. So, and what we hear from a lot of folks, particularly small businesses and entrepreneurs, they're saying, like, okay, I see video everywhere. I know I should be doing this. I know I should be a part of this, but how do I catch this video wave that's just like forming in front of my face? And oh, by the way, I have no video experience. I have no time, and I don't have extravagant budgets like big companies do. So essentially, that's kind of where we come in, is we give folks the tools to make it easy to create, professional videos. And so specifically, Animoto is a tool on web and mobile that makes it basically like drag and drop easy to create professional looking videos, kind of using like this like building blocks type template. And the other cool thing is we have a whole collection of starter templates that we call storyboards. So we've been able to take all our expertise, all our investment in understanding what works and what doesn't work with video, and put all that kind of expertise and wisdom into these starter storyboards. So if you don't know where to start, you can just take a storyboard, open it up, drag and drop, and kind of replace stuff with your own content, and you have a video ready to go. So that's basically us.
Awesome. And you're also doing a lot of things, not just from that standpoint of serving the customer, but you're also educating people, right? Like you do Video Talk Live, you do, was it Brand Camp?
Yeah, we're just, essentially what we're trying to do is not just talk the talk about video and the power of video, but really walk the walk and show folks what does it look like to be a video first company. How really can you embrace video? If we believe that video is the most compelling and effective way to communicate what's important, how are all the ways that we could and should be using it, so we can kind of serve as an example. So we're just out there on video, doing Facebook Live or whatever it is, just showing folks how powerful video can be and experimenting and really just trying to lead the way.
I love it. And speaking of leading the way, in 2006, video was not at the top of everybody's radar, right?
Yep. It was a very different world back then, even though that was just a few years ago.
Yeah. And so how did you, going into creating a company to create videos in a world that really wasn't even aware that was a thing, how did that come up for you?
Great question. Let's see. There's so many interesting parts of our journey, but I'd say that pivotal point when I knew that this was had to go from this crazy idea to to reality, to actually starting this company was It was actually on a date with this girl, Jennifer, who, spoiler alert, is now my wife. But I'll kind of set the picture. We were in the snowy mountains of Sun Valley, and we were on this horse-drawn sleigh ride, and this beautiful evening with the stars and the moon out. And of course, me, because I'm just a total nerd, I had like my backpack with me and my laptop. And I know everyone out there is just like dying because they're like, oh my God, that's so unromantic. But unbeknownst to my now wife, I was planning to try to propose using a video. And so the backstory to that backstory, this is getting kind of like Inception, like a Netflix show, is that my colleague Stevie and I had been working for about the past year on this idea, this technology of rendering video in the cloud. And we had these, we both had these pretty interesting careers in TV. You know, you mentioned a bit of mine. I was a producer for MTV and Comedy Central, and it was really fun. And I even had like like an agent, and I was like pitching shows and working in LA. And my friend Stevie, who I actually went to high school and college with, was doing documentary work with all these amazing people at ABC. And the two of us just always believed in the magic of video. I mean, we were making videos in high school and college on the weekends, and so we always were in love with video. So to have a career in TV was just pretty magical. But we basically just saw how fast everything was changing with technology, with internet, and mind you, this is like before iPhones, right? So it's like these phone things were getting smaller and smaller to the point you could like fold them up and put them in your pocket. And it just seemed inevitable that, that these things would one day have like internet connection and maybe like a camera on them. And we just knew that video was just going to explode. That would go from just being something that these big corporations could do to, basically being in the hands of everyone. And so we just could not stop thinking about it, and we wanted to be a part of that. So we spent the evenings and weekends working on this technology to just make sure, to prove to ourselves it could work. We thought it was going to take a few months, but it took like a year. And so I guess back to my story in the mountains is, we got up to this restaurant, and before going in, we went out to this little snow-covered bridge, and I opened my backpack and opened my laptop and played this video. And I'll spare you all the gushy, cheesy stuff. But basically, at the end, in the video and then in person, I got down on my knee and took out a ring and asked, Jen to marry me. And funny thing is, I don't think she actually ever said yes, but she was bawling. And mind you, she's kind of like a tough cookie, so she doesn't really cry about much. But the fact that this video just moved her to tears and was one of the most defining moments of our lives, I was like, and this was an Animoto video using our technology that I've been working on. I was like, okay, like this is one of the most magical moments in my life. How amazing would it be if I could give this experience to every person in the world? And so it was just it proved to me, it proved to my now wife, it proved to my co-founder, like all of this was worth it. And so it was really that moment. They were like, you know what, let's jump off the cliff and quit our jobs and make this work. So that's a bit about how we got started.
So sweet. So interesting. So you guys then for the idea to do this in the first place, it was because of your love of filmmaking and video. So you were coming from the inside of the industry and seeing a use case for it to be in everybody's hands.
Yeah, and we're just kind of like, video and technology nerds. And so there was also just this emergence of like cloud computing, and we're like, what it would be like to, build this technology in the cloud. So it was kind of in part embracing our experience with video, but really diving into stuff that no one had done before. So in that respect, we had all the confidence in the world of knowing what makes for great video, but to build a technology that no one had ever done, let alone in the cloud, which is the whole crazy thing that people didn't even know about yet. There was a lot where we were on a steep learning curve, and we didn't know whether a lot of it was going to be possible. But in part, what made it kind of a less crazy sounding story is we didn't just quit our jobs and go for it. We had been working on the nights and weekends to really prove to ourselves that, yeah, you know what, this is possible, and we have enough going here that it's worth it to take that leap of faith.
I love it. So you had proven the concept personally, but in terms of sales, who were you planning on selling that to?
Well, so this is the part of our story which is has maybe where we've grown the most. I think if you want me to be completely honest, we didn't know. We maybe, and this is not dissimilar to a lot of people who start companies, where they fall in love with this idea or the product or something. And so we were exactly the same. We built this thing, and man, this was really cool technology, and we had patents and everything, and we were just nerding out in the biggest ways. But we actually didn't know who was going to use this. The one thing that we did get right in the beginning is we made sure to have an actual business model. But even that wasn't obvious. A lot of people thought we were crazy. They're like, and mind you, this is like, 10, 11 years ago. They're like, no one charges anything on the internet. Look at Google, look at Yahoo. Like, if you want to be, everything on the internet is free. And that's the expectation. And if you think you are arrogant enough to charge, like, you are silly and automatically a failed business. But we just had to have the confidence that we could build something of value that people would be willing to pay for. And we also just didn't like the idea of having these videos, like with advertising all over them, and we didn't want to be an ad-supported business. So that part we got right, is we actually, made sure to charge, and lo and behold, people actually did pay for it. The thing that ended up being a bit of a faux success, if I shall admit it, for the first 2 years is, well, I guess we had a little bit of everyone using us. We had realtors, photographers, moms, dads, travelers, nonprofits, schools, teachers. We had a little bit of everyone. And to us in the beginning, we're like, this is amazing. All these people that we never even dreamed of using us is using us. And then, as we got into it, we realized this is the worst thing ever, because we have no idea it's like we're being pulled in 1,000 different directions. And so not only was that so hard to run a business, because it's like, how do we prioritize when we're being asked to go in 20 different directions? How do we prioritize things? But it really took a toll, I think, on our product and our technology and the user experience, because it just kind of became a bit of I'll call it like a Frankensteinian mess, right? Because it just wasn't clear who we were serving. And at some point, we had to say, you know what? It's would we rather be kind of okay at a lot of things, or best in the world at one thing? And so that's where we kind of set out to reinvent ourselves a bit, and kind of like disrupt ourselves. So we literally built a whole new product from scratch that we thought was like the next generation video creator, the product that if someone had come out with this, that we would just completely freak out about. We wanted to create that product that would disrupt ourselves, and with that created our focus. So ultimately we decided where we could make the biggest difference and where there was an actual market opportunity that was just going to be exciting for us is everything around supporting small businesses and marketers. And fast forward, that's where we are today.
Very cool. So now, when you first started out, were you, like you said, lots of people were buying the product or the solution, and I'm just kind of wondering, like, where did they come from? Again, this is back in 2006 when most people were not online. Facebook was only really getting known a little bit outside of universities and very select groups.
Totally.
So people were not, MySpace was there.
Yeah.
But that was a very specific age range too, right? So the internet was still in its infancy. Not that I think we still have a long way to go before we see it really fully emerge as a grown-up. But it was like, it just wasn't, most people didn't have it. So who are these people who were buying from you, and how did they find you? How did you make that offer when they weren't there. And and I ask you this, and I'm just going to preface to say, a lot of people, when they're starting businesses, they think, well, this person has an advantage because X, Y, Z, or these people have an advantage. And technology, they know technology and I don't. And it's like, here, you were so forward thinking. You guys were ahead of your time, and you had the technology, but the everyday person didn't, right?
Yep. The truth is, there was no one thing. It was lots of little things all along that just kind of built the momentum of, we always kind of reference, this was from a book, From Good to Great, that we read early on, but they talk about this giant flywheel, right? There's no one thing that just suddenly gets this giant flywheel. It's the constant push of a lot of little things. And I think, in those beginning days, a lot of it was, and actually still to this day, word of mouth. When you do have, I think, a genuinely valuable service or product, and people love the experience, not just with the product, but with your company and your brand, they talk about it. And so the lucky thing for us is this was the emergence of social media. So it's funny that it was about MySpace when we first started, and it's changed like 5 times over with different things over the years. But that made it that much more easy for people to talk about things they love, and also, dislike, in a very kind of efficient way. So social media has really unlocked, the traditional sense of word of mouth. You don't have to actually bump into your neighbor to talk about it. You can talk to all 200 of your friends, with a few words. And so I think we were lucky in the early day to really catch some of that potential of what social media could offer. And of course, when there's something kind of inherently special about video as well, which is video happens to be this type of thing that people share. And so we could kind of leverage the kind of inherent characteristics of video that people want to share it. And, in those early days, experimenting with how do we attach, the Animoto logo or brand on it, which earlier on people didn't seem to kind of care as much about, whether, because it was just so cool. They're like, everyone look at this, look what I made. So we were able to kind of leverage some of that inherent shareability of videos, which we still do to this day. It's like video just happens to be one of these things that people share. So, but there was no one thing, and you're absolutely right. A lot of folks I talk to who are starting businesses, they're like, "What's that one? What was your secret?" It's every small win is a win, and it's you have to think of it like a flywheel and just keep that momentum going, and it will all add up.
I love that. And I think that celebrating those wins really, I hear so many times people just gloss over the wins and focus on what didn't work in a launch or in an effort or what have you. And it's like, but what about all these things that did work? What about all these people who did invest in you? Well, it's not what I had planned for, but it's like that kind of thinking, I think, will keep people down from success, opposed to celebrating the wins and appreciating all 50 of these people invested in me. Oh my gosh, yay. Who cares if you wanted 100 or 1,000? It's like you have to honor what you do have. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is too, is in those early days, I think one thing to, is folks who are listening to, these podcasts where these people come on and they try to give you the one size fits all solution for all businesses. I mean, if there was one playbook of success for all businesses, and all businesses would be successful, right? The whole idea of the whole reason why, startups starting a business is kind of like an art, is there are so many unique things about you, your team, your founders, how you approach your business, what your product has to offer, how you're different. And so it's really about understanding and embracing those unique qualities of you, your product, your team, your service, your whole experience. And it's not just copying other people's playbook, because that's not a winning, kind of by definition. If 10 companies can follow the same playbook, then it's not a winning strategy. So what is it about you that's unique? And every company is different. Like, again, if we listen to everyone in those early days, well, look at what Google does and Yahoo does, we probably would not still be in business today, because that didn't work for us. So don't be afraid to kind of to to listen to yourself and what you believe is going to work best for your business, and try it.
Awesome. So you also you've kept your uniqueness and going your own path. You also have built your company of now 100 plus employees with a very special company culture. Can you speak about, number one, what is that? And number two, why is that important to you? And number three, how did you guys stay the course and not get caught up in however many millions of things you could have gotten caught up in and let this go by the wayside?
Great question, and it's been an ever evolving journey. Just even understanding what this thing culture is, because it sounds like this totally foofy thing. I think that for me, one of the influential moments early on, before we even launched, is I read this book, Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsiao. Tony Hsiao, today he's like the CEO of Zappos, but before Zappos, he was like the co-founder of some company called like Linked Exchange, and sold it to like Microsoft for $250 million within like 3 years or something. And you're like, yeah, well, that sounds like a pretty good, that's like the dream, right? But in the book, he talked about how much he hated it. Like he hated it. He hated his company so much that he talked about how he would just in the morning keep hitting snooze and just go back to bed. And he like just did not even want to get out of bed. And I could not understand. Like, I'm like, well, dude, it's your company. Why don't you just change whatever it is you don't like? It's yours. And I just didn't understand that. And through the book, I understood a little bit more, but it was really kind of in building Animoto, you start to realize that at some point, the culture, the environment, everything kind of starts to take a life of its own. A big part of that is the people you choose to hire, because they ultimately, it's not, the culture is not because you are there every day. It's about the culmination of all the people and what they, who they are and what they stand for. And so, in the early days, it was simple as like, man, if I'm going to be spending most of my life at, this place, I don't know what's going to happen with Animoto, but I sure as heck don't want to be like that guy who hated going into his own company. So let's just make it a great place. Let's hire great people that we actually want to be around, that, that are not only smart, but actually feel like that they're bringing out the best, in each other. And it was just kind of this feeling of building a great place. And then kind of fast forward, this wasn't even that long ago, maybe a 2 or 3 years ago, where a colleague of mine, Sarah, asked to have lunch, and she has this great company here in New York, and she sat down with her notepad, and she was like, Jason, so everyone knows Animoto has a great culture. She took out her notepad. She was, tell me what I need to do, and she's like getting ready to write all this stuff down. And I thought at that moment, I was like, okay, I got this. Like, I'll tell her exactly. And as I got into it, I realized I had no idea what I was talking about, because I was telling her stuff that was like, yeah, well, just because you do these things, like, whatever social Friday things or weekly meetings, that doesn't mean you're going to have a great culture. And I actually kind of went back to the office after that lunch, and I was like, for as great as our culture here is, we don't actually understand it, because I can't even explain it. And I'm like supposed to be the guy that cares about it the most. So what we did is we put together a whole team of, I don't know, like maybe 8, kind of like a SWAT team of sorts, to really figure out what it is that, what it is that our team values in each other. And we came up with these 3 things. So this is just for Animoto, but we call it humbletude, betterfication, and umphosity. Or humbletude is like this perfect blend of humility and confidence, and betterfication is like, hungry for solutions, not problems, and umphosity is like kind of living life with that extra gear. So, but the reason it's important is everyone here knows that culture is one of the most special things here. So as we grow, if we don't understand exactly what it is that makes it special, then we risk losing it. More specifically, culture is why people stick around here longer than usual. So in terms of just like the cost efficiency of running a business, if you have a bunch of high turnover, that's really expensive because you're interviewing people all the time. You're training people, onboarding. So like that heavy churn can really slow your business down and cost a lot. So the fact that we keep people a lot longer than most other tech companies is a huge value, a huge asset for us. And then it's just, the other important thing is just really being strong enough to truly live by your walk the walk of your values. And for us, that's in part about being willing to hire and fire by your values. So just because you have them on a piece of paper doesn't mean it automatically becomes, a part of your company. You have to figure out, how do you operationalize this? So before we interview folks, we talk about, so how are we going to ask the right questions, really suss out the things that, other than the fact that they're smart and they have the right skills and blah, 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 but like, how do we know they're going to fit in here? So yeah, that for us has been truly just really having a strong culture, and over time really investing in not only understanding it, but integrating it into how we do things here. It just not only I think makes us a successful company, but like I love actually coming into work every day because I'm inspired by everyone I work with and they help make me a better person. And so
love it. So that's super, super valuable advice and just story. And I get the sense of like what your hiring could be like. But what about your firing? Can we talk about that a little bit? Because I think this is something that is really difficult for many business owners, is to let people go. And I hear all the time, hire slow, fire fast. And if you have that strong culture, you don't want anything to like damage it. So how do you know when it's time to let somebody go? And do you have a protocol you'd be willing to share that could be helpful of like just kind of assessing the situation and moving through it in a hopefully positive way?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, I even remember, the first couple people we had to part ways with. It was like so hard, because especially in those early days, it's kind of like you're like a family. It's like, why would you ever part with someone? They're pouring all their blood, blood, sweat, and tears into it like you. So, but the truth is, if sometimes when you have the wrong person, they can be such a distraction or cost you so much more time and energy that everyone is just better off, including that person, if you part ways. I think for us, a few keys has been, one is and this really came from one of my co-founders, Brad. He says, in many ways, a company is defined not just by how they hire people, but how they let people go. So, there's a lot of cruel ways you can do it. But I think for us, we take a lot of pride in that. We do it with integrity, and we do it, with the kind of the best intentions at heart. So part of that is, and part of what I learned is, sometimes it might seem like someone is not a good fit, but you have to make sure that you've done your part to make sure that they're successful. And so I'll be honest, there are times where I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not the right person. But then we've actually asked ourselves like hard questions like, well, was it clear what that person's role is and what they're responsible for and what success looks like? And sometimes, we're like, you know what? I'm not sure we did make that clear, or I'm not sure it was clear amongst everyone what success looks like. So if they don't know what success is and you don't know what success is, then how do we actually know that this has failed? So more often than not, taking the time to provide a bit more clarity in roles and definitions of roles and responsibilities and what success looks like is often the most important first step. And then I think there's a more objective way to say, okay, now that everything is clear, are they on the right path? And sometimes with that clarity, it changes everything, and then they suddenly become a rock star. It's kind of amazing. And sometimes, even with that level of clarity, it's clear they're not the right fit. And then it's about, you make sure it's to the extent you can, make sure it's not a surprise, that they've had ample, kind of warning that we're working on this. We've even kind of gotten to the point where, to make it really clear, we make it clear that they are on a plan. So like if it doesn't work out, that we're going to be parting ways. But I think ultimately, as hard as it can be to part with someone, especially if you're like a softie like me, you have to just really believe that ultimately it's best for not just you, it's best for your team. Your team will, if they are dragging down your team, you have to believe that you are doing this not just for the company, but for the benefit of your team. Your team will respect you because they know that you are looking out for the best interests of the team as a whole. And believe it or not, like 9 times out of 10, it's actually better for that person you part with, because they end up in a role that's more appropriate for them, or maybe sometimes they have that moment of reflection or growing up. And I can't tell you the number of people that we've parted with maybe for not so great reasons, and then I see them down the road, and they have grown up, and they have reflected, and they have found things that are more appropriate, or they have realized that what they were doing at Animoto wasn't even what they wanted to do. So it can be all around beneficial for everyone. And I think that's the peace of mind I always have when we have to have those tough conversations. But it's not easy, right? You want to believe that we're all family.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think that's one of the big things is, as you bring people on, as you scale, it's easy to get lost in the transitions and not necessarily hold those lines. And I love that you went and said, wait a minute, what is it? And that you brought it to the team.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else that I didn't ask you about how you went from, your first employee to now over 100? Is there any kind of words of wisdom that you could share upon your own reflection of what that's been like? And I assume now it's much easier to grow than it was at the beginning.
Absolutely. I think for me, the single most important thing that kind of I think clarity that I had in the beginning was making sure that we surrounded ourselves with people that were dependable and reliable. And I'd say, if you are starting something off, I have found tremendous value in having co-founders, folks that I could, bounce ideas off of, that would complement my strengths and weaknesses, that I enjoyed working with, that brought the best out of me. But inherent, kind of foundational to all of that, is making sure that you respect and trust them. And in part that is because they are, that everyone is reliable and dependable, meaning if they say they're going to do something, that they do it. So I think that level of like being a person of your word, both for yourself and the partners or the co-founders you choose to surround yourself, and all the hires that you make, from the very first intern or assistant to your 100th employee, because there's a lot of people out there that can talk the talk and are great in interviews, but especially in a startup, when you're trying to take a crazy idea and make it happen, you have to have those people that are reliable, dependable, that you can trust, and that can walk the walk.
Awesome. Very cool. Oh my gosh, there's so many things I want to ask you, and I'm like, oh well, we can't go here because we've already been there, and it's like this is the downside of having a client on my interview, my own show. We're definitely going to have you back for more. So we've talked a lot about you as a business owner. I'd love to talk a little bit about you just as a person who is a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
So you married Jen.
Yep.
And you have children.
Yep. I have two twin girls who are 6 years old. We live in Brooklyn, New York.
And you seem to have a very good balance or hold on your schedule. So how did this emerge, or was this like always like that? Or can you talk about some best practices for managing being responsible for this company, or in part responsible for this company, and being able to really show up and be responsible as a father and a husband, and have a life outside of the business?
Well, man, well, first I have to admit I'm far from great at this, but the one concept that has helped me the most, which I really think about often, is I kind of think of my life as like this three-legged stool, where each leg is, one is work, one is family, and one is me, myself. And it's like one of these things I realize that when one of those legs is off kilter or out of whack, the whole thing can kind of come crumbling down because they all affect one another. It's really hard to like just totally, because they're all part of you, right? And I've certainly gone through all sorts of ups and downs where I've over prioritized one and neglected others. And so I think that idea of like a three-legged stool, that for each of those stools to be successful, you have to have a kind of a strong, stable, complementary leg. So, and for those are the three that kind of the three legs of the stool in my life. I'd say for other folks out there, they may define those legs differently. There may be a fourth leg or a fifth, so, but whatever those are, those core pillars in your life, and making sure that they're all healthy, because they do affect one another. So, ultimately, what does that mean? It means making sure I'm conscious about, when I get home from my family, that I'm, I used to be, and I'm still kind of notorious for like thinking about 10,000 things while like talking to my wife, my kids. But now it's like making it a priority to get home with a clear mind and be present for them. And for myself, now that I'm in my post 40hood, making sure I'm taking care of myself. And that's not just for me and my own energy at work and clarity of mind at work, but it's also for my family, making sure that I can be healthy for them in the long run. So it all, as much as you might try to compartmentalize your life into these different, chapters or whatever, it's all one book. So you have to treat it holistically. And that, for whatever it's worth, if that analogy of the three-legged stool helps folks, that's what I have to offer.
Well, I think it's a really good one. And I wonder, is there anything that you do when you leave the office, between the time you leave and the time you get home, that you do specifically to help you clear your mind and be present when you get there?
Well, I think most folks don't have the luxury of living next door to their office. So most folks have a commute. So I actually do, and and oftentimes those commute times can kind of add up. So I think it is, it sounds cheesy, but to think about your commute time strategically. So in the mornings, what can you do to really be as mentally prepared as you can for your day at work? But then on the way home is what can you do to, if, this is what I'm recommending, but if for your family or whatever you're going home to, if it's important to go home with a clear, and present mind, what can you do to kind of clear your mind? So for me, I do a number of things, from, listen to podcasts or read books to, just watching, various videos that I've downloaded. But for different people, it can be different things. And I think some people are tempted to squeeze in extra work or stress about this, but, and it's hard. I don't do it perfectly, but, it's, if you are conscious of trying to use that time to prepare yourself for that next part of your day, I think that really helps. Because if you think about your commute time and how it adds up over the months and years, it's a lot of time. So, use it wisely.
Thank you. So we are coming to the end of our time together for this go, but we'll definitely have you on again. Before we do wrap up, any final words of wisdom, anything you want to leave my listeners with before we say goodbye?
Well, because my world and my passion is about video and everything I do here at Animoto with my team, I think it's just reminding folks that things are changing really fast, and the marketing landscape is just changing. So just not assuming that what worked yesterday necessarily works today. And there's so much opportunity for small businesses of what you can do on social media. I mean, if you think about the world of TV not too long ago, there's no way a small business could show up next to some giant, international powerhouse. And the fact that with social, you can be seen by anyone, it's just amazing. It's a huge opportunity, and video is a big part of that. So I think it's, if you're either starting a business or trying to figure out how to take it next level, it's not just about hoping people discover you or waiting for people to discover you. It's not about, not even like casting the wide net, and for every 100th email and call you make, maybe one or two, you can take the conversation to where it's happening. And that's the power of social media, and video is how everyone wants to consume information these days. So kind of just bringing it back to my genuine belief in the power of video. I want everyone to discover the magic of that.
Awesome. And you have something for my audience?
Well, I just thought it might be nice to, if you're trying to figure out, well, what do I do now? And, it sounds interesting. I just want to create like a page that you can go to. So I'm going to create a page, animoto.com/Nicole. That should be super easy for everyone to remember. And I'll put my contact info on there and my social media stuff, and some helpful links. And, whether you're trying to get started with video for the first time, or trying to figure out how to take it to the next level, I just get in touch. I love talking to businesses, to entrepreneurs, to anyone out there who has that idea that they're trying to get off the ground. And I'll talk to you about anything and everything, but especially if you're trying to figure out how to get started with video, I want to help make you successful. So animoto.com/Nicole, and do not hesitate to find me and get in touch. I would love to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Jason. I really, really appreciate you being here today. And I look forward to the next time.
Thanks, Nicole. And congratulations with your success with everything going on. And it's just a real privilege to be a part of all this. So thank you.
Thank you.